to the 8th episode of the yayQuery podcast, brought to you by TinyCDN and Devotee.
Bienvenidos, and welcome to episode 7 of the yayQuery podcast. We'd like to wish everyone out there a happy holidays, a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, a Kwanzaa of joy, a Festivus, etc., etc., and a Happy New Year. With all those things happening, I think Alex has some sad news for everyone, though.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're retiring episode 8 of yayQuery. So next week there will be no yayQuery episode. We'll still keep the number. It'll just be a null, undefined episode. So if we're in JavaScript, it'd be var yayQuery 8 in brackets and then just a semicolon. So you can consider it that, and we'll move on. Just skip the episode into the next week.
I think that might be invalid JavaScript, but we'll
that's
be
valid.
I like it.
It might not go through JSLint, but what does Crockford know, you know?
What does he know?
I don't know.
Exactly.
Have you guys actually, did you guys spot, there's kind of a little ruckus on Crockford in his license for JSLint.
Oh, yeah.
It should only be used for good, not evil.
That's totally a license.
And it got kicked off of Google Code. Along with any project that leverages either that license or JSLint.
Well, almost all projects, more or less. One project got kicked off, and now that guy's kind of campaigning to say, hey, you got to be fair, because there's like 6 Google projects that use it in their code as well. So they're saying they are going to take it out of their code, but we'll see what happens. I think that it's silly, because that's also their slogan almost.
I was going to say, it's like, do no evil. And now Google is like, no, evil's good? I don't know.
There's also that awesome alert thing that happened with Jason.
Oh, yeah, he also owned everybody who hotlinked.
Oh, yeah, Jason2.js. He owned me. I had a site.
Oh, come on, Paul.
Really poor form on my part, I'm sorry.
You should at least, just to anybody who doesn't want to pay for the hosting, just remember that you can overwrite window.alert. So window.alert equals function, open paren, bracket, and you're good. His code will still be hot linkable. Just as long as
you can steal JSON2 all you want. Good call. So Paul, we have a little yayQuery news?
Yeah, we do.
So are you going to tell us about it?
Yeah, mate. On one of our very valued listeners,
one of our fans.
Sure. She might just be very kind of like ambivalent about us, but she was nice enough to donate something. In addition to the yayQuery party line that is available at 4434 yayQuery.
Woo!
You can now leave a message on our Skype account. You can call up our Skype voicemail. The username is just yayQuery. And thanks to our friend Binary Kitten, we got this. You can check out her stuff. She's a really cool front-end, back-end, everything developer in the UK. She has a site at binarykitten.me.uk. It's pretty badass.
And yeah, so now all our international listeners can give us a call on Skype if you would like, and no long-distance charges.
Speaking about internationals, like people that are from Romania and now live in San Francisco.
That was an excellent transition,
Great toss,
Paul.
Great
toss.
That
was lovely. I just caught this today, and it was kind of neat. Like we've all seen 24 Ways probably, which is just sort of a holiday front end development site of neat things. And Stoyan Stefanov from Yahoo gave us a little performance advent calendar for 2009. It's just sort of a roundup of performance tips. Some of them are from him, some of them are from guest authors that he's got, but pretty cool. So check it out, www.phpied.com/performance advent calendar 2009. We'll have the link on the site, so check it out and get some good performance tips for your holiday enjoyment.
And I think we're going to hop right into our favorite segment. It's the
Hidden
enhancements.
What?
The little tiny things you never thought you'd see.
Oh.
So a lot of the times I know people wonder what happens while we are in our song breaks, and usually we use that time to try to magically address, by casting spells, any problems that are afflicting our podcast. So we did that, and Paul's magical, terrible throat affliction completely cured.
Hello.
So we've got our hidden enhancement, and it's... Everyone hopefully knows that jQuery objects basically wrap arrays of DOM elements. So if you need to get an the underlying DOM element for any jQuery selection, you can just access it using bracket notation. What a lot of people don't know is that the array sort method is available directly on any jQuery object. This is useful if you have, maybe an unordered list and you want to alphabetize it quickly or do any other sort of sort. It's literally the same array prototype sort that is on the array. And it's really easy to use, and a lot of people just don't know that it's there. So I've seen some pretty crazy attempts at sorting things that like try to navigate the DOM and like use insert before after analyzing the text of the element, and those things are crazy compared.
What would you like? What's the use case for using sort on a jQuery object?
I had someone in the channel that I help a lot. One time needed to sort like a list of users in a live chat window, and he wanted that to be alphabetized at any given time. So if you have new users coming in and out from a back end, you're just able to call the sort on that list, and then you could reappend the elements back sorted and go on like that.
So I'm gonna guess that this isn't just like magic where you just call dot sort and it just magically knows what you want. I'm guessing you have to pass this a function.
Yeah.
Or something?
The sort function just is a function that accepts two arguments that are two elements in the array, and you return -1 if the first argument is earlier in the list or should be sorted earlier in the list than the next object. You return a 0 if they're supposed to be equal, and you return a 1 if the first object should be after the second argument.
So you're basically passing a function to this sort method.
You're passing a function to the sort, and then you get back a jQuery object sorted, and you can change.
And that would be equivalent to Java's comparator type functions, if anyone's a Java programmer, because aren't Java and JavaScript like they're the same? Right?
I heard they were the same.
It's like a scripty Java.
Okay,
cool. Right.
Just getting that out of the way, because that's what I always thought. I just wasn't sure everyone else knew that.
One more little question. So this like in some browsers this is available natively, but in others I'm guessing it's something that has to be created.
No,
is that true?
It's a native method of the array.
This is native across the board. Okay.
The array sort method is a native method.
And in 1.32?
It's in 1.32. You do not have to wait
Probably
till
in 1.3.
Well,
1.3.
who's using 1.3 that's not using 1.32?
Seriously.
Hard to know.
This is where, if that's you,
stop.
What the deal, brah?
Exactly. Hey, so speaking of versions in 1.3 and 1.3.2, there's a new one, and Alex has some news about that for us, don't you?
Yes. This past week, John Resig has announced that we have 1.4 Alpha 2. I think he released Alpha 1 about 2 weeks ago, and it's fairly similar. Obviously, once you get to the release stages, you shouldn't expect a ton of updates. And we also have a little bit of a hint about when the final version should come out. Yesterday, which is, or 2 days ago perhaps, so about Saturday of this week, every jQuery developer ever posted a tweet for 1.4, and it was like a Roman numeral XIV space T-27D, and this is obviously some sort of alien language, Roman
secret code
that no one can break. However,
except us.
We got our crack team on it. We put it through this rainbow hash table database that we have, and we went through every possible combination. And so we figured out that perhaps the XIV is 14. It's Roman numerals, maybe. It could just be like a nickname, Ziv. But we're going to go with 14, and then T-27D could be T-minus 27 days, like a NASA countdown. So that would put the release date at January 14th, which is assuming that they posted that on the 13th or the 18th, I think, right? And also, I believe that's jQuery's birthday, the 4-year birthday of jQuery, which would make sense. So I'm kind of putting all these things together, and that's strictly my personal take. So no guarantees from yayQuery, but I feel like a crack. Like I had a professor that now works at the NSA. Just saying. JS.
I think you're like a psychic, Alex.
Wow.
That was some serious deduction you did.
I didn't know that the birthday was then. But that's rad.
Awesome. jQuery's going to pre-K next year.
Also in 1.4 news, there was some changes made to the adder method, also known as the attribute method. We call it adder because that's convenient, and that's what it is. Basically, they put in this feature, now it's gone, but you can still use it in a couple cases. But basically, the feature is using methods like width, height, event handlers, and you can kind of use them inside of an attribute object. So the really cool thing that you would do is you would create an element, like pass it like that you're going to create an A tag or something, and then say that the text is going to be this, and it's going to use the text method, and then the click is going to be this function, and it's going to use kind of the built-in methods inside jQuery, and make it all work. And it's a really nice, very like, if I want to create an element with all this stuff happening, it's very, very friendly, and it will feel very like nice to people coming from a MooTools or a prototype background.
Yeah, so it's really cool because you get to just pass this attribute when you're creating these new elements. You get to pass this attribute object, which has all these instructions in it, instead of having to, verbosely specify those instructions individually. You just get to say, hey, here's all the information you need to know about this object, and it just does all of it for you. And kind of pretty cool.
Yeah, I like it because, you can create an object up at the top of your function. It's almost, and then use it for several different object creation, element creations. So it's almost, I like to call it meta templating, if you will. So it's like you're templating everything about your elements, not necessarily the structure of those elements, but you're templating all of the attributes that can be on it, as well as it looks like 8 built-in functions. So that's val, CSS, HTML, text, data, width, height, and offset are overloaded, and that's actually kind of cool how they do that. The big debate, I think, was with Matt Cruz in the jQuery dev channel, and a lot of people had the problem, but I think he brought it up more specifically, was that in the old way of doing it, the attribute would grab the actual width of the element. It would actually use the jQuery width function rather than actually accessing the width attribute. of the so the CSS could be overriding the attribute, and we wouldn't be getting that actual attribute. Personally, I like the normalization, but I think there was enough dissent that, yeah, I mean, Paul's wishy-washy, but and sure, I mean, I think normalization is part of a library, but I definitely see the argument. So the cool thing, the awesomest thing about this is that you can turn any of the jQuery built-in stuff from Adder off. So if the jQuery.adderFN object has those 8 values in it, and they're all set to true. And you can add your own plugins there, so you could set your own plugins in these Adder objects, and you can take out the, if you really hate width and height in there, you can set those to false, and they will use the attributes rather than the jQuery function. So I think this is a really, really awesome change to jQuery.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that like the default behavior hasn't changed, but there's a whole lot more power behind the Adder method than there used to be, and that's pretty neat. So we'll have a link to the commit that changed all of this on our site, and you can check it out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like you mentioned that there's a lot of different views on why you might want to use the jQuery methods or not use the jQuery methods. So this lets people have really fine-grained control over exactly how their elements are created. So maybe you don't need to use DOM creation plugins, because a lot of this syntax really starts to look more, encapsulated with objects. It's a lot neater to look at, so it's very exciting.
Yeah, I'm super excited about being able to pass an attribute object to this to element creation too.
Yeah.
Yay!
This might be my favorite commit thus far.
So far.
Well,
so Adam, you got a little bit of credit for a commit in the 1.4 Alpha 2. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So last week we mentioned there was going to be a new contains method in jQuery 1.4, but we kind of, we kind of bitched about it. Explicit tag. So John kindly took that out. It didn't really conform to what the contains selector did, for those of you who didn't see last week. So we are waving goodbye to contains, and thanks for the hat tip.
Excellent. And one other thing that we... Oh, do you have more?
No, I was about to toss it to you.
Oh, you were about to toss it to me. I just tossed it to myself. One other thing that we are going to see, it's not in 1.4 Alpha 2, so don't look for it quite yet, but John Ressig did announce that jQuery is going to try switching to the Google Closure compiler instead of using the YUI compressor. And so far what we're seeing is a 13% savings in file size, which is not trivial at all. Kind of cool, using the Google Closure compiler. And
I think that's 3 kilobytes in exact data.
No, I think, wasn't it more than that? I don't remember. But I mean,
that's what he tweeted. I didn't actually.
One thing you know is that they're great at using percentages to communicate the jQuery project.
Well, anyway, 13% is like, it's more than 10, so I think that's worth talking about. It's not
13%. It's more than 10.
It's more than 10. Well, it's not like 2 or something like that. But so what you might have remembered that when Google stop laughing at me. It's not nice. So you might remember that when Google Closure Compiler first came out, we were all excited and stuff, and they did give it a try on the jQuery source and ran into some issues. There were some recursive looping issues, and that was not cool, and jQuery broke, and that sucked. But it's been fixed, and so now they're actually able to use Google Closure Compiler and be able, with the compiled jQuery, they're still able to pass the unit test for jQuery. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see whether this sticks. And Alex, I think you have some thoughts about how this might affect the speed.
Yeah. I have no guarantees about the following thing, but I saw some smart people on Twitter talk about it, so I'm going to repeat what they said.
The power of social media.
Ooh. So apparently, I mean, obviously, we've talked about Google Closure Compiler a few times, and one of the things it does is it rewrites your JavaScript. It actually rewrites things. So sometimes it'll take, say, like a decremented while loop, which is known to be fast, and then it will change it to like a for loop, to some varying degree, in order to get some sort of size performance boost. So it's actually changing your code in order to make your code smaller, but it might actually, in return, make your code slower, which is something to be considered. So perhaps the overhead of the few extra bytes in order to do a real loop could be there. So it might be better to maybe check that out each one by hand, and then have like an official release on like anything that it changes that's out. So I send out a request to the community to run tests on the Google Closure compile version, which should be out in 1.4 beta 1, and this episode, and this version, Alpha 2, which is not in
it's still
Google
using
Closure.
YUI
Right.
compressor. Yeah. Yeah, and generally, I mean, I'm just excited to see task speed results for 1.4 in general, but it'll definitely be interesting to see what they look like with the Google Closure compiler and see what that does.
And now, I think it's time for the plugin of
Plugin
the
of
week.
Yeah, it's really, really great. It's the plugin of the week.
Adams, you're still going.
Yep.
Yeah, no.
Totally still going.
We don't have to finish those.
It's the plugin of the week, and it's really, really great. It's the plugin of the week. Yeah!
Oh, hello there. I didn't see you guys. It's time for the plugin of the week, and that this week is the jQuery Roundabout function. I think it's hard to say this, but I'm very impressed by this plugin for some reason or another. Maybe it's because every single client that I've ever had wanted this implemented, and I always had to kind of hack it together, or I've always seen really I don't know. Whatever it is, this plugin is cool. It's pretty much like a carousel plugin.
Or like a real carousel.
Yeah.
It looks like what a carousel looks
3D
like if you look at it.
It's actually a carousel. You know, like you can ride it in real life. If I mean, that's not true, but everything else you said is true.
Has horses on it.
No, so
you could make it with horses if you wanted to.
Absolutely, you just put images.
Totally.
Google image
Horses
search is
just
a
like,
great resource for that. Anyway, so this plugin, you know, it's if you're not familiar with the carousel, I'll do it with my hands. It's really good for audio people. It just switches the front viewing things, and then you see the one in the front, right? That's the best I can do. So we'll move on. So this is a really nice implementation. Adam drew a really nice drawing of. I don't actually. That makes no sense. But anyway, so this takes a list element. Natively, it takes a list element, and you have your UL and you have your LIs, and then each LI comes as a box in this carousel that kind of gets rotated around. So if you had, properties or products that you wanted to show in a carousel, then those would go in there just fine. The CSS is nice. The documentation is actually really kind of
gorgeous,
like
spectacular. It's a giant page. It's written by a guy named Fred LeBlanc, who we haven't talked to. But Fred, if you listen to the yayQuery podcast, we want to talk to you because we're impressed with everything you've done thus far. It takes easing, and also there's a separate plugin that goes with it that's called the Roundabout Shapes. So it'll actually follow a different path.
Yeah, you can do like a double helix kind of carousel.
Double or a figure 8 or
So
just a
rad.
regular and like you can attach any it is cool. It's a cool plugin, and we're impressed.
And
However, we have one gripe, and I'll let someone else take this. But
Yeah.
Fred, if you're listening to, we love you. Your site is beautiful, everything. But here's
However,
our gripe.
So this is the problem. You were a little naughty. I think you might have a little coal in your stocking because you did something in this plugin that is kind of against convention these days, and that is you took more than one namespace for your plugin. So what I'm talking about is here there's a lot of methods like the roundabout _set bearing method, the roundabout _set tilt method, and all these methods that he wants to expose, but they're stealing extra methods on method names on top of the jQuery object, and
I'm with you, Paul, but I just want to say that, like, yay, Fred, for offering us all these opportunities to customize the behavior of your plugin.
Yeah.
But I know, Paul, you're about to sort of explain how we might do this a little bit differently and a little bit more appropriately. But this is really cool that all these different options are exposed to us. So I don't want to.
We just think that Fred needs to learn to expose himself a little better.
Yeah. I think you're right.
It's the thing is that, you know, if you look at jQuery UI, or I can't think of anything else, so. I think that if you look at jQuery UI, you see a different way of exposing plugin methods.
These sub-methods of the plugin.
And that is by doing some type coercion on the core plugin method and then passing the method names as string arguments. So, for instance, in UI tabs, if you want to select a tab, you can you say the element that the tabs are on, .tabs, select, and the index or a selector referencing the tab that you want to select. There's some people who say that's kludgy. So another way you can do that is by using the jQuery data method to store the instance of your plugin, and then just by virtue of the fact that users can access that instance, they'll be able to call whatever methods are on that instance. So instead of, now a lot of people, the reason that these plugin, the names are so long in Roundabout is because he doesn't want to cause name conflicts. No one's ever going to conflict with, you know, a method like roundabout_set_tilt, but it's still, you know, like we said, it's claiming too much for your plugin when there are neater ways of doing this.
Yeah, so check out the way that jQuery UI does it, and there's actually, this isn't really exposed publicly right now, but if you check out the jQuery.widget method, there's some pretty neat stuff in there. And Paul, you've also written the jQuery just Widget Factory, which also
I wrote a little plugin factory and haven't at all released it.
I'm sorry, plugin factory.
So
nobody knows about it. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have brought that up.
So in the spirit of the season, the spirit of giving, and the spirit of wanting people to give us things that are awesome, what do you guys want for Christmas? I mean, there's a lot of things that we would love to see kind of happen in front end web development land. So, like Rebecca, what would make your Christmas extra special?
What would make my Christmas extra special is I have been using Chrome. am on a Mac, and I've been using Chrome pretty much as my exclusive browser for the last couple of months, and it's awesome. But I can't use it for development quite yet because there are things missing, and the big thing that I want for Christmas is extensions for Chrome on the Mac. I talked earlier about Stoyan Stefanov's performance advent calendar, and he's talking about using Speed Tracer in Chrome, and I want it. So that's what I want for Christmas in the front-end development world. And Adam, how about you?
Okay, one thing that I saw a couple of weeks ago on Ajaxy and that really piqued my interest was the W3C released a draft of the Capture API, which is something that would theoretically allow you to capture video and audio using JavaScript. And I think that the possibilities are endless. And I have already registered a domain that I hope to eventually use for some cool project with this.
What is it? Are you going to tell us?
Nope, it's too secret.
Yeah.
Too secret.
Yeah, you'll have to talk to Hixie on that one. Just send him a Christmas card. Just be hey, make a spec for this. Hixie, if you're watching, contact us. You're on our next show. I don't know if you know that yet, but
we'll start using it to record yayQuery.
We're going to be asking you questions, so if you don't answer, you'll seem kind of like a jerk. Anyways, we'll move on to me, and I think I have a three-way tie on what I want for Christmas. I always had big lists. So first thing I wanted was for anyone in Austin to come see me speak at the Austin Dev Days, which is January 30th. The second thing I want is $1 billion, and the third thing I want is Crocs. So any of those three things that you guys can manage. Paul?
What I would want, I want to personally, push some releases out the door, some things we mentioned earlier, my plugin factory, some other stuff. But honestly, I want everyone sitting on some projects that they have and it's 95% complete. I want everyone to make an effort in the new year to really get those out there and get those shared for the community.
Are you saying that the 3 wise men or more of the front-end community need to come give the baby Jesus that is the community frankincense, myrrh, and gold, perhaps?
That's definitely not what he's saying. So we'll move on.
All right.
You know what it's
All Irish's jQuery.
Anti-pattern for performance of the week.
Bum, bum.
This week, the anti-pattern is the alert. The window.alert method is a terrible, horrible scourge upon our lands. It is the anti-Christmas. It is everything.
It's the coal in your stocking.
It is. Right up there with document write. But alert seems to be, people hang on to alert a little bit too long, and they really need to let go. So there's a few clear reasons why alert is really bad. One, if you're using it with any sort of events, you're trying to debug something, but you're using it with something to do with a mouse enter, over, leave, hover, any sort of focus blur stuff, it's going to completely ruin everything.
And you will never do that again once you do it once.
No,
hopefully.
no. But there's ways around it. So we have console.log, the console API, which is in every browser except for IE6 and 7. That's safe to use. Also, there is the debugger statement. So you can just say debugger anywhere in your code, and it's basically a breakpoint. And any debugger will just stop on that point. This even works in IE6 or IE7, and if you have a debugger registered, it'll go into that. So you don't even have to set up a breakpoint in advance, which is pretty handy. But the big complaint that everyone has is oh, but then I have console logs in my code, and then IE6 is going to say, this method doesn't exist. The way that you get around that is just a small little wrapper. A lot of people have written these, but basically you just check to see if window.console exists, and if it doesn't, you just say that log is an empty function. And that's really all you need.
Robustly cache it for the potential arrival of a debugger later.
Yeah, you can do that too.
All kinds of stops on this train.
There's I wrote a small little 3-liner that does this exact same thing. Just Google Paul Irish log, but everyone has written one, so there's no reason.
I think I know everyone has written one, but if someone could write one, you called it a small little wrapper. Other small little rappers that I know are like Lil Wayne, Lil Romeo.
Oh, Lil Romeo! I saw him on Cribs.
Yeah, no, like so. Other small little rappers, I think, would be in great support of Lil Console. Maybe we can get Jonathan Neal. Here's a shout out. We need a song by Lil Console next episode. Which, yeah.
Speaking of Jonathan Neal.
It's the yayQuery Beginner's Corner, where everything is new. It's the yayQuery Beginner's Corner. I'm a newbie, what are you?
Okay, so sort of following up on what Paul was just talking about with console logging, a lot of people don't know this, but once you get a jQuery selection, so you do, $parens div or whatever, you can actually log the result of that jQuery selection in Firebug and see what you got. And in Firebug, it'll give you a list of all the elements that you got. You can go down to Firebug and actually mouse over them, and it'll show you those elements in your page. And it's really cool. And it can really help you when you're having trouble with a selector, or your code just isn't quite doing what you think it should be doing. If you console log the selection that you've made, you can very often find out that maybe the selection that you made isn't getting the elements that you thought it was getting. Or it's getting more than you thought it was getting, or it's getting different than what you thought it was getting. And so just console logging that selection before you try and do something with it can really help you figure out what might be wrong with your code. And it's kind of the first thing you should do when something's going wrong with your code. So console.log, if you're in, like Paul was saying, if you're in Firebug or Safari or Chrome or IE8, it's going to help you out and help you see what you've actually done before you keep going from there. So yay, right. Console log.
And just super fast for anyone who doesn't know, the console in Firebug is that little thing. It takes commands down at the bottom, so you can actually give real-time commands down at the bottom of your console. So if you want to test out if your selectors work, you can go in there while your page doesn't even have the code in it, type your selector for returns of value. You know that you're doing the right thing. So even before you get into your code, you don't have to do the log. You can type directly into the console.
So the other thing that people often don't know about the whole Firebug console, besides just being able to log jQuery selections, is that, okay, so we're all used to seeing the single line console down at the bottom, and you can write single line things in it, and that's cool. But sometimes you want to write more than one line at a time, and there's a way to do that. There's this little button down in the right hand, red in Windows or gray in Mac. It's kind of hidden. It's kind of weird.
That's
but
awesome.
Look for this button, because it lets you, instead of having this one line console, actually have this multi-line console over on the right-hand side of Firebug, and now you can type multiple lines of code.
Function definitions right in there.
Whatever
and pro tip on that one is Control Enter.
Exactly, you beat me to it.
That.
I was going to say that, and now you stole my thunder. But
one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite console features by far.
Or if you're on a Mac, then Apple Enter, same thing. But yeah. Apple Enter, and then you can actually run the code over there in the console. So yeah, so if you want to write, go for it, Adam.
So many times in jQuery IRC channel, I have seen people who are trying to do just what you're describing with logging a jQuery object, but they're using window.alert. And they're like, it shows object in IE, what is this object? And that's the moment where you're like, you know that there is this thing called Firebug, and they're like,
I think
there are people who are like, so I've seen people discover Firebug at this exact moment. So I don't know if they're in our audience though, but
it's very exciting. And the other thing that I just want to throw out there, because Paul, I thought you were going to talk about this, but you didn't. But in addition to console.log, there's also console.dir. And so dir, D-I-R.
Not everyone knew that.
Console.dir. So if you want to like actually explore an object a little bit and be able to browse the object, then console.dir it instead of console.log it.
There's
there's
a lot more methods on the command line API. The time methods, the profile methods, and they're all actually pretty standard. They're supported across major browsers. But log and dir are the two most commonly and most useful methods for sure.
Another thing that's nice is that if you use these methods and you are paused on a breakpoint, is that the consoles are in the scope of those functions.
It's magic.
So you can see what like this is, or what this children is. So it's really nifty. Another thing that's really useful if you're working with jQuery objects in Firebug is the yayQuery plugin. I don't know if we've ever mentioned this before, but it's pretty damn sweet. Lets you see all the data elements that are on a jQuery object through the HTML view of Firebug. It has like a jQueryify bookmarklet in it, and it just makes it a lot easier to work with jQuery objects in Firebug. So that is yayQuery.
So lovely. So we thank you for joining us for this very festive episode of yayQuery.
It's very seasonal.
we actually made a list of all the seasonally adjectives to drop into place in this podcast.
So in order to
pretty much failed at that, I think.
In order to fulfill, I just wanted to say that Paul, I really appreciate our sponsors for this episode. They're very decorative and festive, frosty,
glistening, holy, homemade, jingling, jolly and merry, and sometimes naughty
advertisers that do very seasonal,
holly, frankincense, decorative, festive, frosty, glistening, homemade, jingling, jolly, merry, and mistletoe
things, which are devotee and which is an expression engine site, which if you work in expression engine, check out. You have to. It's rule. And then also TinyCDN, which is a awesome low-key CDN for all your content delivery needs.
And you might like it. You might like it if you like candy canes.
Exactly.
Or if you like virgin birth.
The virgin birth.
Or a 9-candle menorah.
All right. Anyways, we thank you for joining us on this week, and we apologize for our holiday spirit. If you are a Scrooge, then you might not like this episode. Otherwise, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. We love you for watching us, and we hope
Happy decade.
You have a Happy New Year as well, since the next episode won't exist. Undefined. Peace out.
Bye.
Ba-da-ba-ba.